Hello and welcome to another episode of Twice as Lively with Ken Heckenlively. That would be me, your host. Now, what am I going to be talking about today? The superpower of philosophy. Why might you want to be more philosophical? Yes, we're going to get deep today. We're going to go into the thoughts that are going through your brain and how that can help or hurt you, because we always want to help you here at Twice as Lively. So we begin, as we always do, with our simultaneous sip. We have our wonderful Pete's coffee. My go-to order is a cafe Americano with a little bit of room for cream and honey, because we always need a little bit of sugar with our caffeine, don't we? Okay, it is 10:14 on the West Coast, which means pretty much anywhere in the continental United States, it is a work day. So whatever beverage you are choosing to imbibe, hopefully it does not have alcohol, because that is not socially appropriate. But because you are a free human being, if you choose to flout social convention, there's nothing wrong with that. I will not judge you for it. I'm just letting you know that most of the human race believes that drinking should not take place during work hours. So, if you're confused on that point, I just wanted to make sure that you knew, and then you can make your own decision. So let's start with that simultaneous sip. Here we go, that wonderful caffeine. Oh, yes, I've already had some this morning, but I can always use a little bit more. Ah, so refreshing, so refreshing. And as always, I put it to the side. So in case my voice gets a little bit raspy, all I need to do is just take another sip. Okay, the title of today's episode is Be Philosophical. Why might we want to be philosophical, and where did I get the idea for this broadcast? Well, this past weekend, I spent some delightful time with some family members, and we were just talking about certain situations. And one of my family members had made the observation that I'm very philosophical. And I didn't quite know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. The tone of his voice suggested that he wasn't quite sure what he thought about the fact that I am often very philosophical. So it made me think, why do other people think that I'm very philosophical? What is it that I'm saying that makes people think of me as being philosophical? And as I thought about it, I came up with this answer. I'm a big believer in describing situations. But what I try to do is I try to withhold judgment as to what it means. So my job as a writer is to describe things, and people generally appreciate it when you accurately describe things. But you have to be fair. One of the things that I get back as a constant comment on my books is this compliment, which people deliver to me often in something of a confused tone, as if they weren't expecting me to be this way. And what they often say is, Ken, you were really fair in that book. And the way that they say it suggests to me that they thought I wouldn't be fair. Now, was that because I was describing a philosophy or thought or political belief which I do not share? Well, maybe. And but I think even more than the political philosophy that you have, one of your bedrock principles should be fairness. Now, what does it mean to be fair? What it means to be fair is that you can describe a situation as it appears to you, but you understand that other interpretations may be possible. Now, in my life, I have found that in those instances where I am not philosophical, but I'm very opinionated, I can easily be led into errors. And I don't like to have errors in my thinking because if I have errors in my thinking, then I'm not going to be interacting with the world in a truthful, rational way. I'm going to be interacting in an emotional way. And yes, there's a certain truth to emotion, but you should actually be interested in the objective reality of that. So, in my last couple years of teaching, I would often complain to my wife that there didn't seem to be a good working relationship between me and the other science teachers. And I would come up with all sorts of reasons for it. I dress better than they do. I'm older than they are. I am more conservative than they are, even though we really didn't really talk about politics. And so I would complain to my wife about these other science teachers, and, I'd feel bad about it. And after a Christmas party, which my wife had attended, she said, I want to talk to you about your fellow science teachers and your relationship with them. And I said, oh, okay. What do you want to say? And she goes, I know you think that you don't have a good relationship with them and that they dislike you. But from my observation, they're not very socially gifted, that they're kind of socially awkward. And she goes, I don't think it's that they don't like you. They may not like you, but I really didn't see much evidence that they otherwise have good social relations with people. And so that really made me think. And I was thinking, am I being unfair to the science teachers because maybe that was a gear they just didn't have? Now, in contrast to that, I looked at the members of my wife's profession. She was a speech therapist, and the speech therapist excelled at social interactions with people. And it would literally be like I'd be around my wife's friends for 10, 15 minutes, and I'd feel like we were the best of buddies. Uh, Contrast that to 15 years with a bunch of science teachers and feeling like they were all strangers to me. So I was unnecessarily punishing myself because I had all these opinions about these science teachers, which may have been unfair. So after she had said that, I looked at them a little bit differently. And I think it's very common that when we are feel ostracized, we think that everybody else is having a big party somewhere and we're not invited. When the fact may be, no party is going on at all. And those people just may not have that as a gear for them. They had a lot of other wonderful qualities, really cared about the students, and were very intelligent. But as far as social connection, kind of a challenge. And so throughout my life, what has been a consistent theme for me is I really do have good social connections. And this is something that fairly able I'm able to establish fairly quickly. And so I have a wide number of friends. In my book writing life, I have many different co authors. I work with publishing teams, I work with different editors and everything. And what comes back to me is that I'm a really good collaborator. And so this has been a consistent theme in my life. I mean, my family nickname is the diplomat because it seems like I generally don't give offense to people. And in fact, I'm the opposite. I'm sort of skilled at making people feel good, feel heard, feel seen. And so I found myself going, oh, maybe I was not being philosophical, I was being emotional. And I sort of changed my mindset and I just said, oh, okay, well, maybe this group of people is just a little bit socially awkward. And so it's not that they're intending offense, it's just that there's a gear that's missing there. And so I tell that story just to hopefully trigger something in you about where you may be feeling emotional about a situation and you may not be acting rationally. You may not be seeing things as they are. And so, as I started to use this lens of being uh, philosophical rather than emotional, I started seeing this all over the place. So as you can see, like right behind me here, let's see, my book, Catastrophic Disclosure. It's about the UFO issue. Now, one of the things that I have found in the UFO space is there's a lot of emotion between those people who are pushing for disclosure. And I can understand it. There has been a lot of misinformation in the UFO space. And I'm going to be the first to say, I don't know what the truth is. But I like to accurately describe certain situations. And I want to describe a situation which I feel has the potential to spin out of control a little bit. And at least for my part, I want to see if I can offer anything useful. So, as most people know, there's a UFO whistleblower, David Grush, who has come out very bravely and talked about the programs that he's worked on. And, and it seems like he is a genuine individual. Around him are a number of other people. There's Congressman Eric Burleson, who works on the Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets, who's actually hired David Grush to provide some input on the UFO issue and issues of government secrecy. There is an independent researcher, UAP GERB, I believe it is, and there's also Lou Elizondo, who, like Grush, has been involved in the UFO issue. Now, one of the problems is that because the government has lied about UFOs and concealed information, there's a lot of distrust in this field, and I understand it. So apparently, is some concern that Lou Elizondo is a disinformation agent, and his attempts to bring about disclosure are not entirely genuine. So let me talk about that. Let me describe the nature of the problem. So Lou Elizondo did work in intelligence. In his own book, he talks about the people that he worked closely with, including James Clapper, the former head of the NSA, who famously lied before Congress about the existence of a monitoring program on Americans. He's also close to General Mad Dog Mattis, who was, I believe, defense secretary under the first Trump administration, and who famously said that any president, or famously told Trump that he should consider any cyber attack on our country as akin to a nuclear attack, and he should feel that he could respond with nuclear weapons, a position that many found to be very problematic. This is the description. Also, in regards to Lou Elizondo, his family comes from Cuba. He acknowledges that his father was part of the anti-Castro movement, so associated with the CIA. So let's look at Lou's history. Lou comes from a CIA family. Lou has a strong relationship with James Clapper. Lou has a strong association with General Mad Dog Mattis. Lou worked in the intelligence agencies and was in charge of the interrogation of Guantanamo Bay prisoners. All of those are facts. Now, my specialty is whistleblowers. I've written 22 or 23 books. Most of them are whistleblowers. There is a certain psychological profile of a whistleblower. Whistleblowers generally are motivated by the desire to do the right thing. That's what I've found. And they also genuinely suffer for what they do. Now, both Grush and Lou Elizondo are a bit constrained because, unlike the whistleblowers that I've dealt with, they're attempting to go through official channels. So both Grush and Elizondo will say, there are questions I would like to answer, but because of the security agreements I've signed and the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements, I can't say that. And that's honest. I will say that when I read Lou's book, Imminent, he genuinely appeared to me to be a whistleblower. Now, what do I mean when I say that? What I mean is that there are certain psychological things which happen to whistleblowers when they go outside the chain of command. And it seems like Lou has genuinely been pressing the envelope. People like Gerb and some others have been expressing some concerns about that. Now, again, I'm not going to weigh in on whether Gerb's comments are correct or the comments of Lou Elizondo's attorney, but it seems like some unnecessary things are being said and alleged by Lou Elizondo's current attorney, attacking people like Gerb, attacking people like Congressman Eric Burleson, attacking Congressman Burleson's Christianity. And I'm a little bit concerned about that because I understand how easy it is to get emotional about things when we may all need to pull our horns in a little bit and say, I'm not quite sure, but let me describe the situation. So, in response to those who have concerns about Lou Elizondo, I would say the following. There are some reasons for concern. Lou is a longtime intelligence operative. He has worked closely with people like James Clapper, General Mad Dog Mattis, and he did oversee the interrogation program at Guantanamo Bay. All of those things are what Lou himself details in his book. By the same token, it seems clear that Lou has been responsible for a lot of UFO information coming out. What Lou says in his defense is that he is trying to push disclosure while at the same time avoiding jail time for revealing secrets that he should not. Uh, I have sat at dinner with Lou Elizondo, listening to him talk to people, and he seems to be genuine. Now, is he genuine? I don't know. Because the same thing which would make me trust that Lou knows what he's talking about is the same thing which would make me say, hey, he knows the people who've concealed the UFO information. And so I think it's quite natural for people to say, well, wait a minute. On the one hand, I understand that somebody of Lou's background is the exact person who would know exactly what's going on with the UFO issue. On the other hand, it's also true that Lou comes from the world of intelligence. And we know that misinformation is what the intelligence agencies often engage in. So I think that in the UFO sphere, my advice to you as somebody who is not in the UFO sphere is let's tone down the personal attacks. I think it's entirely fair to describe situations, ask for clarification, and then see what the response is. My background as an attorney leads me to a number of beliefs. One of those beliefs is that there must be a rational and full examination of the issues. That's why in a courtroom, somebody sits in the witness chair, raises their hand, swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Their own attorney examines them, and then they get cross-examined. So I understand that there are some raw feelings in the UFO community, and I understand that. On Lou's part, he feels that these people have his phone number, and if they want to call and ask him any questions, they can do it. The fact that they have not done it apparently makes him think that these people are cowards. I get that. By the same token, I think legitimate questions must be raised and answered by Lou Elizondo, who, from all appearances, seems very willing to answer that. I mean, I have Lou's phone number. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm suggesting some approaches which might be more useful. And as I said, I'm philosophical about this. So I'm not getting emotional. I'm just saying maybe we want to ask questions, but maybe we also want to withhold judgment a little bit until we make sure that we have good answers at the proper forum, and then let the people decide. So when I look at the world through this same lens of maybe there's a bigger problem with people not being philosophical. So every time I look at this, I just say to myself, wow, every fight that I see in the news seems to be because people are not being philosophical. Let me go through a couple of them. The Charlie Kirk assassination. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't know what to believe. I'm not a big gun guy, but I understand that some guns are more powerful than others. Specifically, a 30-06 should be doing more damage than was done to Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't understand about fragmented hollow point bullets. That may be an answer. I don't know about that. But the attacks against those who raise questions, like Candace Owens or Lionel Nation or any of the other people who are doing it, just seem to be beyond the pale. And I understand when you find yourself in the middle of something and you're accused of something, you may want to respond emotionally. But I find myself annoyed not by the questions, but by the attacks. So when I see people like Candace Owens or Lionel Nation raising questions, my response is not to say they're demonic. You must worship the widow. Protect the widow. No, no. I'm just like, okay, answer the question. I'm I'm happy to eventually conclude that Tyler Robinson is solely responsible for killing Charlie Kirk. But I think there's also some interesting questions about the role of Israel in our political system. I've heard people like John Kirikou, a former CIA officer, explain how the Israelis do not seem to act like allies when they are in the United States, because allies should not be spying on each other and stealing intellectual property. I think that the questions that John Kirikou and others raise, absolutely appropriate. I don't know the answer to it, so I I want to hear the description of the problem, and then I want to use my brain to analyze what may be going on. So I'm not sure exactly how close we should be to Israel, how close we should be to Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. I'm not certain about the Gaza situation. I think that there are legitimate questions that need to be asked, and I'm waiting for them to be answered. I'm not waiting to be told that my asking of questions is somehow a mark against my soul and intentions. No, I'm trained as an attorney and I'm trained as an educator, which means you need to give me information. If you just start insulting people, I'm sorry. I'm not that happy with you. I'm I'm not on your side. Give me data, give me information, give me facts, and then let me make the decision. Okay. So now I got to move on to another situation in which I am going to criticize people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Lionel Nation. People who I genuinely like a lot and I listen to them. So it seems that there's this weird thing going on in the news. And when I hear a situation described and my common sense rears its ugly head and says, wait a minute, you aren't describing it accurately. I have to sit up and take notice. So, again, this is not an argument for the Iran war. It's not an argument against the Iran war. It's just a description of what's going on. Here's something that I hear a bunch of conservatives, a bunch of non-interventionists who I understand that, and I'm sorry, I'm on your side. Okay. So I'm saying this as somebody who will agree with you in most instances. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm hearing an argument from the anti-interventionists, which makes no sense to me. And I want to detail why it doesn't make sense to me. I'm told at one on one point we are using so many bombs and so many missiles that our arsenal is getting depleted, and we're not going to have the resources we need if another war comes around. Got it. Are we using up all of our missiles and bombs on Iran? Got it. But in the next breath, I'm hearing this is having absolutely no effect on the Iranian government and on the Iranian people and the Iranian military, and that they're just going to keep doing the same thing. Those two things cannot both be true. We can't both be bombing the living daylights out of Iran, and it has no effect. That just doesn't make any logical sense. What seems to me to be true is that, number one, we are dropping a lot of bombs on Iranian targets. Number two, that has to be degrading their military power. Number three, it seems to me that when you degrade the military power of a country, that will have some effects. So it's got to be one or the other. You have to say, wow, we've been dropping so many bombs that we are low on munitions. But on the flip side, we've gotten rid of a whole lot of Iran's military power. Now, what's going to happen over the next 15 or 20 years? I can't say. That's where I withhold judgment. But I find it a little bit disingenuous when you say, on the one hand, that we have dropped so many munitions that we're in the danger of running out of those in case we need them for another conflict. But on the other hand, that we've done nothing of importance against the Iranian military. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just saying, if you're going to make an argument, there needs to be some ideological consistency to it. Now, where am I on August 4th, 2026 about the Iran war? Well, I'm a little bit confused, quite honestly. Now, I've heard some commentators also say that Iran is just going to do what Iran is going to do. And they're going to chant death to America, but nothing's ever going to come of it. I have to say, though, Iran has been a problem for a long time. And I don't see the Gulf countries sad about Iran being dealt with. If anything, it seems like the Middle East is uniting against Iran. I wish that some of my conservative commentators who are non-interventionists would explain to me why it seems that the Middle East really likes what's going on. It makes me think that the Middle East is tired of Iran's bullying. Now, can I be convinced that something else is going on? Can I be convinced that this is a monumental mistake? Yeah, sure I can. But I'm not hearing my good conservative non-interventionists answering these questions. So if you want to know whether I'm independent, well, look to this broadcast. I am telling you that I love questions. I I hate personal attacks. However, I like this situation to be described accurately and fairly. So, notice how consistent I am. In the UFO issue, yes, I believe there are legitimate questions which should be raised about Lou Elizondo and his intelligence connections. I think Lou should be given the opportunity to respond at length to those concerns. And then, just like in a courtroom, we all get to decide whether we think he's telling the truth or not. The Charlie Kirk assassination. I do not like the attacks which are being leveled against those who are claiming that the evidence against Tyler Robinson is not strong and convincing. I want to hear answers to that. I don't want to hear protect the widow. Anybody who asks questions is demonic. Because if that is the standard, then count me as demonic. Because I will never stop asking questions until you have satisfied my curiosity. Now, on the Iran situation, I think that the benefit of the doubt at this point belongs to President Trump because I haven't heard anybody explain to me how we're going to deal with Iran's belligerent behavior. It seems like the Middle East loves what we're doing. It seems like those in the neighborhood are excited about what we're doing. Now, do I know everything? Am I willing to be convinced? Yes. But as always, you need to provide me with information. Don't simply attack the people with whom you disagree, but make a better argument. So, that's my broadcast for today. Hopefully, this is not the best part of your day. Hopefully, the best part of your day is talking to people in your own world because you know social ties are what make us healthy and happy. All right. Have a good day, America, because I'm going to have a good day.